What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Comedy Coach podcast. Manny Garavito here. Just came back from watching the Michael Jackson movie. By the way, great film. Take your mother to go see it. Even if it's no longer Mother's Day, she deserves to see that movie to remind you just how important that ass whooping was. All right, so on this episode of the Comedy Coach podcast, I'd like to get into the admiration I have for comedy. I've always enjoyed people that can have a funny conversation. Podcasts are great. I also like hanging out with friends that are just funny. You know those friends. They just say something funny and they're just pleasant to be around. And they make you laugh on the most random things, daily life stuff. They just know where the funny's at. And when I see professional comedians do it on stage too, or as they would call it, writing on stage, it's just so fascinating to see because if you've ever written comedy, you know the amount of work it takes you know how much work it takes for you to say something funny. You've got to sit down and consider the options, think about the ways people can find this funny. You think about certain people. Would your uncle laugh at this? Would the lady at the grocery store laugh at this? And then, all these things come together. And it makes it difficult to find something funny based on a certain topic. I've made content about this before. Some of them are more on the deeper end, but just to make the complex more simple, I'd like to think about how good are you at perspectiving other people's reality? Like, are you able to go into someone else's life and kind of just see the world through their eyes? Do you have that ability? It may not be accurate, but you'd be surprised how that skill of just seeing what it would be like to be a certain person can give you some really good ways to make something funny. And if you do that often enough, you can get a really good generic feel for how funny works in a general broad sense, of course. And you then tie that in with your own sense of humor, and it expands your ability to be funny. Another way that you can see how to find the funny easily or spontaneously or naturally is, and maybe I've been spending too much time with AI lately, but I'm fascinated by computers too. Like, just because I remember when AOL came out when I was a kid, and I was just like, oh my God, what is this email thing? Websites about Star Wars, and I would look up, back then there would be like memes about wrestlers and stuff like that. So I just loved computers. I even built a website for my favorite rappers when I was in middle school. And as I'm growing up with computers, I just love all the new technology that's coming out. And maybe I'm spending too much time with the artificial intelligence, but when the way that quantum computers was explained to me, where a regular computer, or let's say, like a few first early generations of computers, the way they would find the problem to a solution is by taking one linear path to get to it. When you think of the logical side of how computers think, they need to be very meticulous on how to come up with an accurate response. What quantum computers can do is they can take various linear paths to get to that one solution. And that's what makes it faster. The ability to solve it multiple ways at the same time to get to the one accurate response. And so when I think about that, I also think about that's how like comedy works. But there's not just one way to say something funny. There's various ways. And that's what makes it so much fun. You don't have to like say 2 + 2 = 4 to make it funny. You can do various examples and it's funny. So the reason why I'm saying all this to get started is when you think about, are they metaphors? Are they symbols? Are they analogies? Yeah, I think analogy is the right one. I'm prepping you to see the analogy, the metaphor of comedy in this sense, so that if you'd like to find the funny fast, keep in mind that the more perspectives you have, the faster you are at finding the funny, or in the computer sense, the solution, right? And every scenario that you're in that you'd like to find something funny for is an experiment or a gym or an ability to test just how flexible your sense of humor is. So I'll give you an example. Let's say something awkward happens. Somebody tries to say something funny, it doesn't land. Now it's awkward even more because that person, and they hit a wall. And usually people that don't understand how their sense of humor works use that as a traumatic experience to never try to say anything funny again. Another example would be something awkward happens and it's amongst your group of friends and someone tries to make light of it by saying something funny about it. It falls flat, but then they try again, or the way it fell flat is funny and it's not really that serious or traumatic because you're amongst a group of friends and so you're just having fun. And so you can play around with your sense of humor that way. You're having fun in the awkwardness. Now, a funny person are just really good at seeing the possibilities and choosing very good paths to say something funny based on the possibilities. And over time, you go from a linear computer to a quantum computer when it comes to your sense of humor and the way you use it, because you're no longer just choosing a path. Because when someone's naturally funny, they don't say to themselves, all right, what can I say that's funny here? And then you take a moment, you ponder it. Naturally funny people just choose the right path. But when you do it over time, what ends up happening is the paths themselves reveal a pattern. If someone slips and falls, it's a pattern of something you've seen before. Or you see the reaction of the people around you, and it's a pattern of something else before. And so the more you put it to practice, the more you put your sense of humor to practice, and you get to test just how flexible your fun or ability to have fun is in different scenarios, the better you are at instinctively getting to the funny thing a lot faster, because you're no longer choosing a path, or if you did choose a path, you'd get to the funny fast. No, now it's just like you just quantum leap directly to the thing, whether it's saying some funny rebuttal, a comeback, an observation, whatever tool or whatever preference you have for your comedy. And I like this analogy because it makes a lot. It's number one, it's easy to understand, at least for me. But I like this analogy because it really goes to show you the advantages we have as human beings with something like humor. Because if there's more than one right way to make something funny, but even better, there's only one way to make it funny your way. The computers or the AI, when they try to use their sense of humor or try to say something funny, you can just see how linear it is. But when humans do it, there's a bit of a flexible imperfection, a little vulnerability in it, and even personal experiences that allows you to say the funny thing your own way. And the only way that a computer or an AI or whatever can make something funny is just based off formulaic responses, where our sense of humor is based off of experience, emotions, social intelligence, stuff like that. It's kind of like a thumbprint of what you find funny and how you use that in different contexts. And so that's why I think that being in touch with your sense of humor is so essential right now, because there's so many creative endeavors out there that are about to, I wouldn't say replaced, but I'd say AI would implement its version of it in the mix. With humor, I think that top tier humor will be said by humans in a social setting with emotional accuracy and great timing and stuff like that, especially if the person that's saying it is charismatic, likable, has a good funny reputation, maybe personal brand, stuff like that. So this podcast, the reason why I'm doing it is because if you'd like to master your sense of humor, use analogies. It doesn't have to be the one I provided, but find something that works for you to understand how it's done, and preferably things that you're fascinated with. There's no better way to learn something than by a simple visual or a simple symbol, or the more sophisticated, the easier it is to understand, because a sense of humor is very complex. I mean, there's so many dynamics to it. But when you think of it like this, for example, in the way I see how people can master their sense of humor or their comedy, it's easy for me to comprehend. Like, okay, now if I think of it this way, all I've got to do is be aware when these patterns come up. Be aware that if I try to say something funny and it doesn't land, that's just part of the process. Or be aware that there's so many possibilities to say something funny that just choosing one limits me from choosing another. And so when you start understanding how to master your own personal sense of humor, use analogies, use symbols, use anything that gives you like a simplistic approach on how to do it, so then that way when it's while it's happening, or the things that could make it happen, allows you to master it. I think life works better that way. I mean, there's so many reasons why you'd rather see a diagram than a formula for the diagram, right? The diagram is just easier to understand. And so this podcast is to show you that you could do the same with your sense of humor. But since these are just concepts, flowing in the wind, you might as well come up with a certain way for you to better understand it. Anyways, so in my personal experience, when it comes to mastering my sense of humor, I don't really think you can 100% master it. You can come close to it, but it's also good news that you can't master your own sense of humor. Why? Because you don't live forever. Living one life is very limited. You can't live all the lives. You can't have all the perspectives. You can't make up all the for how a sense of humor works. You can only do it your own way, and that's already a limit on its own. But it's also what differentiates you. So keep that in mind, that I believe mastering comedy is impossible, but that could be a good thing, because not only is whatever you've discovered yours and yours only, but it'll never end. So you might as well take it as far as you can, and just keep this in mind, that this may be one of the ways to do it, by coming up with a sophisticated understanding to make the complex simple when it comes to finding the funny. And with that being said, let's get into the AI email, shall we? Email 1, based on the transcript. This is what email AI sent me. Subject: I'm funny at work, frozen, on stage. Hey, Manny. I'm Priya. I'm 34, and I work in pharmaceutical sales in Tampa. My coworkers have been telling me for 10 years that I should do stand-up. Apparently, I'm the one who makes the Monday meetings bearable. I finally signed up for an open mic 3 months ago, and it went exactly how you'd expect. I had 5 minutes of quote-unquote material that I've been performing unknowingly in the conference rooms of my whole career. And the second I get on stage, I couldn't find a single one of those jokes. My brain just went blank. I took one path, hit the wall, said thanks, guys, and walked off 2 minutes, 40 seconds. Here's what's confusing me. I know I'm funny in the wild. My friends have evidence. But the moment I sit down to write comedy, nothing comes out. And the moment I get on stage, nothing comes out. It's like the pressure kills the instinct. How do I get my conference room brain to show up on stage? Is that a writing problem, a stage time problem, or a me problem? Thanks for the podcast, Priya. Okay, great. I'm glad you sent this email, because it makes total sense based on what I'm trying to say. It seems like novelty is where you want to go with this, where if you were to sit down and structure something, or if you were to say something verbatim, that's not how your natural sense of humor works. You need to be in the zone, or in this case, around your coworkers, or in a meeting, or maybe in a formal situation that you want to make fun of. And this kind of understanding of where your sense of humor comes from, or the environment where your sense of humor can flourish in, is what you could use as a way to better understand what it takes for it to come out naturally. I don't know, wear a suit on stage. Or if you need a formal scenario, well, doing an open mic is pretty formal. I mean, you signed up, you went up, everyone is putting their attention on you, at least for a little while. What is it about the meetings or the conference rooms that allows you to have more fun compared to you being on stage to try comedy? Or maybe stand-up comedy is not the path to do it in. Maybe it's skits like The Office, corporate humor, but in your own way. Explore all these things and come up with a simple approach as to how your sense of humor comes out in your meetings. You want to find out what is it about this scenario or this context that allows you to naturally be funny, and how you can replicate that over to another context or scenario, whether it be on stage, whether it be at a bar, whether it be creating content. Find the commonalities, find the metaphor, find the analogy, and see if that works. Get to the essence as to how and why those meetings are funny for you. Email 2, the creator who can't shut up online but can't get on stage. What's up, Manny? Name's Darnell. I'm 26, based in Atlanta. I've got 180K followers on TikTok doing observational bits about working retail. You've probably seen the customer service voice series if the algorithm ever hit you. Clips do numbers. Comments are great. I'm recognized even at a Waffle House now, which is either the dream or a warning sign. I haven't decided. Here's the problem. I started doing open mics 6 months ago, thinking it'd be an easy transition. On camera, I can do 10 takes and pick the best angle. I did do a video about that before. Look it up on my timeline, guys. It's exactly what you were describing. I'm literally checking all the paths, then posting the funniest one. One stage, I only get one shot and I freeze. My material sounds flat because I'm trying to remember the viral version of the joke instead of actually finding it live. How do comics who come up with stage time develop that? I see all the patterns at once, instinct without the luxury of retakes. I feel like I built my sense of humor backwards and now I have to unlearn something to learn the real thing. Appreciate you, Darnell. No, you don't. If you're doing something funny one way and it's working for you, you just have to translate it the other way, like how I told email 1. In this case, man, reverse engineer it. You have to understand that this is two different worlds. And what you want to do is you want to transfer the funny from one to the other, but the way you deliver it is totally different. There are no retakes on stage. That's what makes you funny, because you have to get to the funny fast. When you write a skit or you edit it, there's time involved. And then with that time, you can adjust to make the funny happen. So what we're doing here, and I'll give you this just as an example, is you're differentiating between your funny and fast side and your funny and slower side, where the slower gives you the ability to create the content, and the faster side is what gives you the ability to say the funny thing on stage. So how does your writing process work? Go to the roots of it. When you write a skit, how do you do that? Do you sit down, you take a moment, or do you take notes throughout the day? Now, what you might want to do, and of course, this is just an example. Don't ever take this as like the only way to do it. But I'd like for you to know that there are many ways, and this could be one of them. If you were to write, let's say, on a notepad, one funny line, how fast can you get to the second funny line? Or if you write a skit, how fast can you get to the second skit? And then just speed that up. Or you could do something like, if you have 5 funny moments that are considered funny payoffs in your skit, can you come up with 6? What about 7? What about 8? And then you can start ramping up the funny. And then that should translate over to the same way when you do comedy. If you go on stage and you have one funny line, can you come up with the second one while you're on stage? What about a third? Can you have them pre-written? If you have one funny line that works, can you add 2 or 3 more funny lines to that initial funny topic? Experiment like that. It really just comes down to reverse engineering what works, stripping it out, and then just pasting it on the other world of stage time. So just keep that in mind, Darnell. There's many ways that you can practice coming up with the funny stuff. And if you do it online, I can guarantee you that you can figure out how to do it on stage. All you got to do is just practice enough, and then you'll start seeing the similarities between those two worlds of comedy. Email 3, starting comedy at 58. Am I crazy? Dear Manny, my name is Rosa. I'm 58. I'm a retired high school Spanish teacher in Hialeah, and my husband passed away 2 years ago. Sorry to hear that. He was the funny one in our marriage, or at least everyone thought he was. The truth, I was funny to him, and he laughed at everything I said for 31 years. And now he's gone. I'm realizing I have a whole comedic voice that nobody else has ever heard. I've been thinking today about taking a comedy class at one of the clubs in Miami. My kids think it's cute. My sister thinks I'm having a second midlife crisis. I think I might be the only person in the class who remembers when cable TV was new. My question for you isn't really should I do it? I think I already know the answer. It's more this. You talk about your sense of humor being trained over the years through conversations, movies, novelty, meeting new people. I've got 58 years of all that. So why do I feel like I have no idea how to turn it into actual material? It's the instinct in there already. Is the instinct in there already, or do I have to start from zero like a 22-year-old in the class? Gracias for what you do, Rosa. Well, Rosa, here's the thing. What you're describing is you're now more aware of the process of how to use your sense of humor like a tool or an instrument, right? The good news is everyone has a sense of humor in their own way, and it's very subconscious. It just comes out. You're comfortable, you're hanging out with friends, you enjoy a comedy movie, stuff like that. When you get to a moment in your life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at 58 or whatever, it could be at any time where you say to yourself, I want to be known for being funny. That is a pivotal moment in a comedian's life where they decided deliberately, I want to be known for being funny. And that's what you're going through right now. You were funny with your husband. Your husband loved your sense of humor. All you've got to do is figure out how can you translate how you made your husband laugh, which is your spouse, over to other people, strangers, acquaintances, people that you have conversations with. And just to keep it basic, comfort, likability, the ability to understand others, social intelligence, stuff like that. If you can connect with people, you can make them laugh. All you have to do is just do it in a way that is authentically you. You never want to bend over backwards for someone else to amuse them. So, whatever it is that you did that made your husband laugh, start there. Do stuff like that with others. Share those moments that you had with your husband with others. And honestly, if it comes from a good place, I know it's going to be fine. And if someone doesn't like it, that's really on them because you're coming from a good place and you're sharing something special. So no, it's not too late. You're just being aware. Thank God it happened now. Better than later, better than never. So figure it out. How can you translate the funny that you shared with your husband with others? And that's a path you need to take. All right, great emails, by the way. AI really understands my clientele. This is good stuff. I really hope that you figured something out here. When it comes to understanding your sense of humor, it's not really as complicated. It's mysterious. There's a little bit of an enigma involved in people's sense of humor. But one thing is undeniable, is that when somebody knows how to share it, people laugh, people enjoy their company, they're pleasant to be around. And everyone can do that. And everyone deserves to do that. And everyone deserves to know somebody that could do that with them. That's why I started doing comedy coaching, everybody, so you can laugh every day. Visit MannyGaravito.com, and if you need help in better understanding on how to master your comedy voice based on your own lifestyle, check out my website, fill out that little form, reach out to me, and let's see if comedy coaching is right for you. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you on the next Comedy Coach podcast episode.